The purpose of this video is to show you how to exclude data points from an analysis. This is something that we often find ourselves wanting to do when we're interested in exploring the sensitivity of our conclusions to perhaps one or two extreme data points. I'm looking at a data set that has compensation for a set of CEOs, in fact 800 CEOs in this data set, and the key variable is under the column called total compensation. So let's quickly have a look at that. So I do analyze distribution and drop in the column of interest, click on OK, and I get to see the histogram and box plot of this particular variable. Now, from the box plot, it is immediate that there's an extremely unusual observation here. An individual who's making more than $200 million by just hovering over that point, because the column is being used as a label, we can see that's Walt Disney, and that was in fact Michael Eisner making more than 200 million in that particular year. So I'm now curious as to how these results would change if I removed this particular observation, and what I'm going to track while I do that is the mean, which is $2.8 million, and the median, which is about $1.3 million. So here's how you remove an individual data point. Make sure that you have the arrow tool, and all you have to do is hover over the point and left click, and when you do that you'll see that the point remains highlighted but all of the other points are grayed out. Now what you can do is go to the rows menu, and under the rows menu you actually have some options. If you want to exclude the point from the numerical mathematical analyses, you just click on exclude. If on the other hand you'd like to just remove it from the graphics, then you would choose to hide the point, and you do have the option to hide and exclude, which will take it out of both calculations and graphics. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll do hide and exclude, and you can see Eisner has now disappeared, the Walt Disney data point. I can confirm that that has worked because if I scroll down through the spreadsheet, I can find down here at row 793 there is Walt Disney, and these icons on the side of the spreadsheet are telling you that two things have happened to this particular row. There's the icon that looks like a stop sign that says the point is excluded, and then there's the icon that looks like a mask, and that means that this point has been masked or excluded from the graphics, so this point really has gone. Now if I want to redo this analysis that I had just done, I could go back through the Analyze menu as I had originally done and redo it, but there is a quicker way which I want to show you. So if you go to the title bar on the output, click on the red triangle, you can go to script, and the first option on script is redo analysis, and if I do that without having to go through the dialog, the analysis is redone. And now I can see the data set with the Disney point, Eisner removed, and I could note, for example, that the mean has now dropped to 2.56 million. It was at 2.8, whereas the median has gone from 1.3 million to about the same, 1.3 million, just indicating how robust the median is to outliers as compared to the mean. So that's how you remove an individual data point. Let's say you wanted to remove multiple points. Well, there are different ways of doing that, but the one that I tend to use is the lasso tool, and that's more formally called a free-form selection tool. So if I click on the lasso, I can now go into the spreadsheet like this, into the graph, and simply round up a set of points. And once I've done that, notice that that whole group have been highlighted, and if I go through the same menu again, rows exclude, hide and exclude, these points have now been removed from the analysis, and just one more time I'll go to script and redo analysis, and there's a final analysis with that last set of points removed. And you can convince yourselves that points have been removed because by looking at the n, the sample size, you can see we originally were looking at 790, then we took 1 point out and we're looking at 789 points, and we then took another 6 points out, down to 783 points. So that's how you remove multiple points from the analysis. What if you want to bring them back again? Well, the easiest way to bring them all back is to go to the rows dialog and then choose clear row states. And when you do clear row states, you'll see that all of the points come back again, and if you have a look in the spreadsheet, you can convince yourself that none of them have been excluded. So that takes the spreadsheet back to its initial or original state. Now I want to show you one more way that you can exclude points, and this particular dialog is under the rows menu, and it's called data filter. And data filter is a good tool to use when you have a criteria through which you would like to exclude points, so you know some particular bounds you're interested in looking in. So let's check out total compensation and add that variable to the data filter. Now what you can see is that it gives you a range of points for which you would like to select. So I could say, let's look at all those salaries between 100,000, total compensation, and 10 million. And that will identify in the spreadsheet those relevant rows. And you can see there are 788 of them. You can, if you want to, invert the selection criteria, and then it flips that around and looks at the inverse of the criteria. And once you have one of your filters identified, it's possible, if you like, to add more conditions to this. So I could, for example, add in age and say, I only want to look at those individuals who are less than or equal to 50 years old. And now when I do that, I have reduced the set that I'm looking at. So the data filter is appropriate when you have some criteria by which you would like to exclude or select rows. So that wraps up how to exclude and bring back points in JMP, which we do typically for sensitivity analyses.